Hi everyone, this is Tammy, owner of WorthyWorthItPriceless, and today's podcast is titled Come Out of Hiding. God has called us to do great things in life, and a lot of times we run away from what God has called us to do because we oftentimes don't see what God sees in us. And I can only speak for myself. I know that a lot of times, and I know I've said it before in other podcasts, but it's like, I know that God has called me to do something. And sometimes I see it, like I'll have a dream of something. And other times I I just basically go by faith. And then in those situations, I know it's like the craziest thing because you go by faith and you know that God is going to make a way. But then sometimes doubt comes in there and you just basically doubt yourself. And so basically, let me just get to the point. Recently, if you don't know, I did make a video or did take pictures not so long ago, and I cut off my hair last month. I don't know what happened, but in some weird way of cutting off my hair, it made me self-conscious. Like I've been bald on YouTube videos that I did before in years past and everything. I've had my hair different ways and everything. But for some reason, and I believe I just really didn't want to cut off my hair at that time. I don't know why. I do know why I did. I was tired at the moment. And another reason, that is a really good reason not to do things when you're basically emotional. Like I couldn't figure out, it's a long story, but either way, I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with it, and I just got frustrated with it, and I bought clippers and I cut off my hair. And with that being said, I didn't even listen to myself. I listened because something was like, you're going to regret it. And I'm like, oh, whatever. And I just cut off all my hair. And I was like, at first I was like, okay, cool. I was fine with it. Like I said, this wasn't the first time. But something happened with me cutting off my hair that I was like, I didn't want to do videos or anything. I know I did a podcast since then, but I didn't want to get back on videos, and I don't know what happened. But I think that not really fully being prepared or not really wanting to cut off my hair, something happened in that little situation. But either way, and what happened was I don't know. It's really hard to describe or explain because I believe like a part of me actually was gone or something like that. I think like I just didn't want to do it anymore, or I didn't want to get on camera, and I don't know what happened. And I know it's so funny because I'm doing a podcast and I'm not on camera, but either way. But I say all of that to say that don't allow your emotions to put you in a place that you don't want to be in. That's one. But also, it is time for you to do what God has called you to do. It's time to stop hiding behind situations. It's time to stop hiding behind circumstances and stop making excuses. I can only tell you what I know because I realized like there's been even this time. So just say I cut off my hair on my grandmother Mildred's birthday, and it was on August 25th. And I cut off my hair then. God has been giving me ideas for podcasts, videos, all this other stuff, and I haven't done anything. And I realized for me, and it's like every other thing. And so I've been trying to fill the void of doing what God wanted me to do in other things. So just say I was trying to do a craft or do other projects and stuff like that instead of doing the podcast and instead of doing the YouTube videos or anything like basically for the ministry. And excuse me, it seems as though there's been a void in my life. And even though I'm not actually on the screen or the YouTube video or whatever, I needed to do this podcast. I just had to do it. And the reason why is because a lot of times when you're not doing what God has called you to do, there will be voices that come in and tell you that you'll never make it and things won't go the way that God said, or, it'll be a whole bunch of negative impact. And this podcast is somewhat of a declaration to God, and it's out of somewhat desperation. I can't sit here and just wait for me to get like all the equipment. Like, I do have all the equipment to do the podcast or whatever, but for some reason, like, I feel like if I would have just gotten all that stuff out, it just wouldn't be as raw, if it makes sense, because I know it may not be making sense. Let me just put it in layman's terms. A lot of times, God has called us to do something. And a lot of times when we trying to do what He has called us to do, we want everything to be perfect. I had to fight the voices in my mind that was telling me that I wasn't going to make it, or the podcast or Worthy, Worth It, and Priceless wasn't going to make it. Instead of me sitting up there trying to set up the camera, set up the lights, set up the recording equipment or whatever, by the grace of God, I whipped out my phone and said, hey, I'm going to fight it this way. I have to come out of that. And you have to come out of feeling as though you're not going to make it. You got to come out of it one way or another. Everything isn't going to be perfect. I see so many people are talented. I'm around so many talented people, and they ask me, a lot of people ask me, how do I do this? How do I start this or this, that, and the third? And a lot of times people want everything to be so perfect. If you're going to do something, just do it. Just simple. By the grace of God, through Anchor, where I do my YouTube from, my podcast from, they have it that you can just do a podcast on your phone. There's no excuses. People ask all the time, well, how can you start a podcast and how can you do this, that, and the third? Do it on your phone. Download the app, start a podcast, start talking, and call it a day. Like I said, even though I'm not in front of, the camera doing the YouTube, whatever, I know that I've had this message on my heart for a while, and I never came out and said it. And I just don't have time. You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't have time to put the calling on my life on hold anymore. And this is my fight to say, you know what, I am here. I'm going to do what God has called me to do, regardless of if I have hair, if I don't have hair, if my self-esteem is high, if it's low, or whatever. Because there's a calling on my life, and in order for me to fulfill the calling on my life, I have to do the work. A lot of times we be so afraid, and I don't want you to be afraid. Sometimes you just have to do things scared. You're going to have to do things when you don't know the answers, and God is just telling you to go somewhere or do something or pack up your things and move somewhere that you have never even met anybody in that place. You have to do it, even if you have to do it alone, if you have to do it afraid. A lot of times you're going to think that your bestie or your friends or your family or anybody is going to be there for you, and a lot of times they're not. So whatever dream God has put on you, stop being afraid. I know it's easier said than done, but if you just take just a little bit of a step, You gotta take the rest, but you gotta at least take the step. Show up one way or another. Show up. Let God know that, hey, I don't know what you want me to do, but I'm here. Every morning, say, God, yes to your will, yes to your way. Let God know that you surrender to his way. Because when you try to do things on your own, you will mess it up. And I am a living witness. A lot of times I have did things and instead of me waiting on God, I did things the way that I wanted to do it and I messed it up. You know what I mean? Like, I heard the voice say, do not cut off your hair. You're going to hate it. And there was even like a way, like it was like I was like halfway through cutting my hair. So it was like probably just say like all the dead end or whatever. Like I was like because my hair I grew out my hair for like 2 years. And so it was like, I'm trying to, so just say all the dead ends and all that stuff was gone. And it was all level, but I still had like a little afro, and something was like, all right, stop here and try to I was going to put like some stuff on my hair to, make it curl and da-da-da. And and I was like, nope. And I just kept going. And a lot of times that should have been my point right there. Like God gave me a second chance to be like, hey, stop right here. But I was so stubborn. I wanted to just keep cutting. And I made a decision and I wanted to stick with it. And I did it. But like I said, what ended up happening was, for some reason, it paralyzed me. And usually, like when I cut off my hair, I already have it in my mind, like this is what I'm gonna do, or whatever. Like I make up my mind. I'm content with my answer and this, that, and the third. But at this point, I wasn't content with my answer, and I cut off my hair, and I wasn't ready to do it. Now that is something. Yeah, that's not something to do. But either way, with that, for some reason, like I said, it kind of paralyzed me because I didn't want to get back in front of the camera. And I even went to my barber and he lined me up and everything and made sure that everything was even. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to get back in front of the camera. I even like posted up a picture and everything. But for some reason, it's just either my self-esteem or I wasn't feeling it. And like I said, like this podcast isn't just, it is encouragement for you guys, but it's also for me, just making a statement that no matter what has happened in my life, I'm not going to give up. No matter how I might feel, I may not always feel at my best or anything like that, but I'm not going to give up. And that's what you have to do. Even if things don't go the way that you want them to, you got to show up. Because God can change your life in an instant. But you have to stay in the fight. If you give up, you know what I mean? Like, what is the outcome? You're just going to stay down on the floor. You're not going to do what God has called you to do. Every day I wake up, I'm waking up for a reason, because it's a testament. God is telling me that my life isn't over. If there was no purpose for me to be on this earth, I wouldn't be on this earth anymore. I've talked about having low self-esteem. I've talked about having suicidal thoughts. I talked about having depression. If there wasn't a purpose for me to be on this earth, I wouldn't be on this earth anymore. And so there is a purpose, and there is a purpose for you. There's a reason why you've come to this podcast. There's a reason why we were connected, even if it's by voice or even if I met you or anything like that, or if there's a point that you're being encouraged. There's something else on this earth for you to do. So I urge you, like I am doing myself, it's time to come out of hiding. It's time for you, if this is what God has called you to do, whether it be podcasting, whether it be being in front of the camera, whether it being behind the camera, whatever God has called you to do, I need you to make steps to actually getting it done. Don't let fear paralyze you. Take a step towards your future. Don't give up on yourself. Maybe you might be in a place where you're like, Tammy, I'm my only cheerleader. A lot of times I'm my only cheerleader. But also know that your family members on the other side, they're watching you. Whoever was always your cheerleader, like my grandmother, God rest her soul, my grandmother Dorothy, she was always a cheerleader. And no matter what idea I ever had, she didn't care. Like I would say, I wanted to do, just say encouragement one day. I wanted to do pillows another day. I wanted to do something else. She never turned her back on me, and she never said, well, Tammy, you going crazy, or you need to just pick out one thing. Even if I said whatever, like I just wanted to try to do one thing, she was like, you're multi-talented. You can have more than one talent. Like, you know what I mean? And that's the thing. And even if sometimes I feel like I don't have anyone in my corner, I know that she's still watching me, and she's happy for me, and she's encouraging me on the other side. So even if you feel as though you're alone, know that God is always comforting you. The people who have gone on to be with the Lord before you, they're cheering you on as well. So don't give up on yourself. I know it's hard. I know it feels like sometimes you feel like you'll never make it. You feel as though there is no light. You know what I mean? Like there is no light at the end of the tunnel. Nothing is happening. Nothing is going to happen. But God can change everything in an instant. It happened to me multiple times. You just can't give up on yourself because God hasn't given up on you. You may be in a place right now where you don't know what is going to happen. You don't know how you're going to make ends meet. But God has a plan for your life. And you will get there if you don't faint. You will get there if you don't give up. And don't take it into your own hands. Wait on the Lord. Because I will tell you, Lord, I have some stories. I have messed up my life a lot because I have tried to run and do things on my own, and I messed up things. And then the next thing I know is like if I would have just waited another week, sometimes another day, the next day, exactly what I asked for happened. You know what I mean? It was like, dang, if I would have just waited, you know what I mean? Like, just say if you ended up going out spending however much money on something, and the next day it was on sale. You're like, dude, like, you know what I mean? Then they don't want to take it back. You know how that goes. But either way, that's just a little thing. But a lot of times we mess our lives up because we want to rush and say, God, it's taking too long. But if you trust in his time, and everything will work out on the time or at the time that it's supposed to. But a lot of times we don't want to wait for God. We want to make the decision ourselves. And I was, like I said, I was thinking earlier, I'm like, man, if I would have just waited, this probably wouldn't even been the outcome of certain situations. But either way, know that, because I know I just went on from a different tangent, but either way, just know that God has a plan for your life. And whatever gifts and goals and anything that is meant for you, go out and do it. Stop being afraid. I know it's easier said than done, but at least even if you can just take a small step, just each day, just try to take a step. Because it's time for you to use the gifts and the talents that God has given you. He did not give you all that stuff that he's put in on the inside of you to be afraid to share it with the world. Now is the time to share it with the world. Now is the time to live the life that God has called you to do and be happy. Don't you want to be happy? Don't you want peace? Start living the life. Stop being afraid. It's okay. Everything will work out perfectly fine. Just don't give up. So until next time, just know that you are worthy, worth it, and priceless. Bye.